Toby.
Hey.
How
you doing?
Having you here with us in London.
Thank
For people who don't know anything about the Bikeriders, can you set the scene for us? What can they expect when they dive into this film?
The Bikeriders is essentially about a motorbike gang in the 1960s that were kind of all engrossed in. They had a large amount of sort of morality and a certain value to them, and sort of a beautiful biking culture of outcasts. And it's about how that sort of culture slowly started becoming something a little bit more sinister, a little bit more mobby, and that's violent.
And I guess the fact that it's based on these photos, the aesthetic, the feel of this, the grit, the jackets, the bikes, the biceps.
The biceps.
Where did you begin in getting into character?
I began at the biceps and I worked down. I learned how to ride a motorcycle first because I didn't know how to put my hands on my forehand. And then we went into pre-production, rode around as a gang constantly, and that was pretty much it. Did a lot of work on my character and whatnot in my hotel room alone. And
And what can you tell us about the kid? What characterizes him? How did you sort of like get into his mindset? What did you like about playing him?
I guess he's a sort of all-engrossing version of what the bikie culture began to become back in the day. So he's sort of the epitome of the violence that started taking over that culture. But he was a kid from the streets. He grew up with nothing in a probably a violent household, and so all of his eggs are in the basket of joining that gang and making a gang of his own, basically. So yeah.
And this phenomenal cast: Tom Hardy, Austin Butler, Jenny Comer. What was it like working with all these people? And I guess how do you sort of create that feeling on set, these very lived-in relationships and dynamics?
Well, just from the pre-production, really, like riding around with each other on motorbikes constantly, basically did all of that work of like being really familiar with each other. So that basically did that whole thing for the sort of group aspect of it. And then for the character stuff, just lots of chats with Jeff, really. Yeah.
Was there any standout moments? Any moments you loved, particularly with Tom or Austin or Jodie?
I had an amazing time with Tom. Getting beaten the bejeeps out of by Tom in a scene was something that I've always wanted myself, and I finally got it and made me very happy.
Did anything go wrong at any point?
In pre-production, I was riding this motorcycle that was almost impossible to ride, and I rode it right into an embankment and I went flying over the handlebars. That wasn't as planned, so that.
And in terms of the takeaways, I mean, I guess you're immersing people in this era, in this world, but you know, the fact that it's kind of from this female perspective, and perhaps rather than like some films might sort of glamorize this hyper masculinity, the violence, it's sort of showing it to be quite ugly and pointless, and also how people can kind of get trapped in cycles of it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. I think, there's kind of the depth of the film is that you had this feeling of family with them, and that inevitably those kinds of groups were going to be taken over by something that sort of new generation, that sort of monster that was more obsessed with power than a sense of identity or belonging.
And do you feel like in our contemporary era we do have sort of more progressive ideas of masculinity, or is some of that still ringing true?
Progressive for sure, yeah. I really don't know. I hope we make progress on it. I hope we have. I think we have. There's always work to be done, but yeah.
In terms of what you might be having next, in terms of other roles or people you'd love to work with on?
I've got a couple things that are coming up, slightly different what I've done. I feel like I've played kind of bad people for quite a while, so I'm quite excited to do a couple that have a bit more morality to them and a bit more heart in them. So hopefully just went really hard.
That's right. And any like dream director you'd like to work with, or an actor you haven't worked with yet, a genre you'd like to try?
Denise still know I'd love to work with so much. In terms of actors, off the top of my head, Joaquin Phoenix be like the epitome for me of just like the greatest, working with the greatest. So him.
And it does feel like there's just so many amazing actors. Well, they've always been in Australia, but like particularly now, what is in the water there, you know, and what do you think puts you on the map, I guess? What makes an Australian actor so different?
Probably a weird accent. A come over to America and you can't kind of not notice us because we sound absolutely bizarre. So it gets us ahead.
How do you find doing different accents?
How do I find it?
Yeah.
I love doing different accents. I love it. I'm pretty bad at them, so I have to do a lot of work on them when I do a job, but I love it. I love it.
There was some talk about Austin Butler. Maybe he always like kept a little bit of Elvis, but maybe once you get one of these, it's hard to kick it as well.
Probably, yeah. I mean, probably, yeah. Especially if you're playing someone that kind of huge, that iconic. Why not? It's fun. And it was a little bit, it was, you know, we didn't really say that much to each other beforehand. And then the first scene I had with him, we were kind of talking around a fireplace. I was kind of staring at him from across the fire. And, you know, I kind of want to be a part of his game, but I was going to take his game. So I'm having this dialogue in my head. And he starts, kind of notices me at one point. We started staring at each other. And I found myself in this kind of inadvertent staring contest with Tom. And then he started doing that, and then we started like cracking and laughing. And from that point on, it was like beautiful, man. We felt like teammates. So my nerves somewhat started. So hard. Mate, mine was essentially, you know, toot my own horn or anything, but it was apparently the hardest bike to ride. Oh wow! And I can stand by that because I crashed it. And it was supposed to be sort of this thing that's put together from all the bikes that my characters found on the streets, these stolen bits put together. And it's wild riding it. I rode it right into an embankment one day. I'm listening to Howlin' Wolf, and I'm riding an old 19. Mate, probably Ken Mendelsohn. Yeah. I admire him a lot. He's a good friend of mine, and he'd be kind of great in the game. He'd be a lot, but he'd be great.